Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Spring has just sprung. I guess as I'm recording this today, yesterday was the first day of spring, and of course, it is time to start planting out the garden. All right, now it may not be time to start planting out everything. Where I'm sitting right now, I'm in central North Carolina, away from my home, as many of you know if you listen to the show regularly. Last frost date, obviously last frost date here will be about April 15. What does that mean? That means if you're in, what is it, zone 7, I think? 7A? Anything that can be killed by frost, don't plant it until after April 15. In the mountains where I live, last frost date will be at least May 1, and, give it an extra week to be safe. We have a very short growing season on the mountain. Now, there are many things you can plant before the last frost date. Peas, for instance, potatoes, cabbages. A lot of things can be planted. Certainly your salad greens, your mustards, and all the spring onions would be okay. They're bulb. They're going to grow more slowly. But do check. Every single seed pack and every single. Well, you don't even have to go by that anymore. I have books that tell you when to plant what when, and there are magazines. The Old Farmer's Almanac is always the go-to. But you can just go online these days and plug in your hardiness zone if you don't know your USDA hardiness zone. When I say like zone 5 or zone 7, okay? In the mountains I live in zone 5B as of last checked. It used to be zone 5A. It seems to me more they changed the criteria than any climate change actually happened. But zone 5B in Moore County, North Carolina, where I am now, I think it's either 6B or 7A. And that is determined by when your first frost and last frost dates occur. So, find that out. You can go to the USDA website. You can just type in your zip code. You know exactly where you live. And there'll probably be links that tell you when to plant what when. If not, go to a good site like Farmer's Almanac, Dave's Garden. Those are all great. Burpee seeds. As I burp while I'm saying burpee seeds. Yes, that was a nice coincidence. There's so many resources, just didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago. I had to learn things the old-fashioned way. My, great-grandparents planted by the signs. What does that mean? Well, they didn't view the zodiac signs like as a way to tell the future. It was just an old-fashioned calendar that told them what to plant when. But yeah, you need to get your peas in really before the ground even thaws. I mean, the ground can still be frozen when you plant your early sweet peas. By St. Patrick's Day last week, you should be planting potatoes. You got a few weeks here. Don't freak out if you haven't. But there are in lettuces. I would definitely get going early. If you want to plant dandelion greens, it's a good time. But anyway, there are certain spinach. Definitely get the priority on that spinach, without a doubt. But anyway, there are things have to be planted at certain times. You're not going to plant tomatoes now. No, you can get them started. Now, again, this depends on your zone. Get them started indoors under grow lights or in a sunny window or whatever you got. But you're not going to put them out until after the last frost. Same with summer squashes, cucumbers, most of the things we think of in a summer garden. Corn is definitely not going in now. Now, I mean, of course, you could if you were using row covers. Now, if you're using some kind of cover, greenhouse, row cover, you can plant things out much earlier, and then after the last frost, pull them back, harden them off, and they'll be fine. But when it comes to herbs, most herbs are perennial. Really, very few herbs are annuals, and so you should really be thinking about planting those herbs now. My book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden for Preppers, Homesteaders, and everyone else, will tell you exactly how to plant your herb garden. It doesn't talk a lot about growing vegetables. It doesn't talk at all really about growing fruit, except for a few, berry bushes and such, your halls, your viburnums and such that we use in herbal medicine. This is the book you need, and I haven't talked about this for several years. I published this book in, let me see, when did I publish this book? It's been at least 4 or 5 years ago, right? 2022. Okay, 4 years ago. I would say it was the essential book for growing herbs. Now, Richo Check and Catch, Richo, I have trouble with that one. Let's just go with Rico Keck. I don't know, but I have trouble pronouncing his name. There are H's where there shouldn't be. But anyway, yeah, he has the definitive herb growing guide. There's another book out there, Organic Herb Growing. I cannot remember the name of that author. If you want to get into like super specific detail of every single herb, Richo's your man, okay? Go to Mountain Rose Herbs. They're going to have some resources. Fantastic. If you want to just grow things the way I do, very practical. I keep on hand what I need for common ailments. I'm not trying to grow 5,000 herbs for sale, which is what the other books are oriented toward, I guess I should say. I'm growing herbs for personal use or to share with friends, family, and loved ones. I'm also growing a vegetable garden, and I'm growing, various things. I think my book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden, is really the definitive book for the homesteader, for the weekend gardener, for the normal person, not somebody who's got 15 acres of herbs plus planted to take herbs to market. That's what the other books are for. Yeah, I really haven't mentioned this one in quite a while, and I thought since it's spring, I really oughta. Really. Why don't I promote my own work? I don't know. It's just, I come from what they call an old family. One of my ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence. I've got probably 36 ancestors who were kings of England. We tend to be a bit, and many more than that who were kings of Ireland. Don't even be started on Ireland. And a couple in Spain and France. I got a lot of royalty. I don't talk about it, right? Why don't I talk about it? Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I'm going to do in my life. I can't coast on my ancestors' accomplishments. The jackass inbred princes of England do coast on their false kings' coattails. Sorry, that's not the true King of England. if you want to look at who the true king of England is. And of course, the Irish were killed by the English. So, yeah, I don't get a free ride in life. I'm not looking for a free ride in life. I work hard and I try to do my best. And uh, let's just say the House of Windsor is not the House of Wessex. They're pretenders to the throne, and why anybody pretends that they are royalty is beyond me. They do speak beautifully, though. I have to say that. They talk a lot better than I do. I never took elocution classes, but then again, I never wanted to talk like somebody from England. Why is it we look at, we're Americans. We fought two frickin' wars against England for freedom. The Revolution and the War of 1812. We bailed them out twice in two world wars, and now they're not backing us in our war with Iran. I mean, England frickin' sucks, okay? It has not been the nation that England was since about 1500. It's just, I mean, it's not the nation of Shakespeare. It's not the nation of King Edward the Confessor or King Richard Lionheart, my ancestors. England is a weak, nasty, debauched, perverted country. And I mean, has not been an actual power in the world for almost 100 years. Basically went bankrupt in the 70s and is now just overrun with illegal immigrants. It'll soon be a Muslim nation, and those, once great scholars and dons of Oxford and etc. are going to be out on their ass. There's going to be some frickin' Iranian jihadi in there cutting people's heads off. Because what? They don't stand for anything. They sold out when King Henry VIII betrayed the Christian faith because he wanted a divorce and started his own church. That was the end of England. I'm sorry. Cromwell was the end of England. England is nothing but a shadow puppet. And it hasn't been for a very long time. And why we act like England is still a world power is far beyond me. They couldn't muster. I mean, when you think about it right now, if the English had to call up their Air Force or their Navy, they couldn't muster what one American state could call to arms. One single state in America, and even the ones that suck, like New York or Chicago, puts more men in military uniforms and are ready to send them into battle than the entire frickin' nation of England. And don't get me started on France. I'm basically a third English, French, and Irish. The Irish sold out. Probably beginning in the 70s. Okay? Scotland is in the toilet and has been for almost 200 years now. I mean, Scotland the Brave just laid down their arms and said, yes, England, we'll do whatever you want. Yes, England, kick us around, kick us in the teeth, treat us like slaves. We're Scotland the Brave, but we just give up. Okay? Scotland sucks eggs. Okay? The Irish gave up in the 70s. France went nuts in the 1700s and has essentially been a Marxist nation since. France, no one should shed their blood for France, and I am part French. Because they betrayed the faith and they betrayed their history well over 200 years ago, 260 years ago. 230? I'd have to look at the date. Anyway. England has been a parasite on the ass of America for almost 300 years. Yeah, I said it. I don't give a crap what you think about it. Now let's talk about how to grow your garden. And yes, my book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden, is where you should start. We go, I'm a I have, I don't even know, 26 certifications in various aspects of gardening and farming, organic, biointensive, obviously permaculture, tons of stuff in permaculture. Oh, land works like, swales and berms and digging ponds and such as that, beekeeping, forestry. I can't even remember them all, but I also grew up on a farm. And the bottom line is, I want to tell people, you can grow all the herbs you need for your health, no matter where you are. No matter where you are. If you have lots of land, it may actually be harder. Why do I say that? Well, if you have lots of land, you can't manage all that land. I mean, right before my grandmother passed away, I was managing the main part of the family farm after my uncle passed away, and I took over what he was doing. And we were down to 38 acres around the house. Now, there were outlying areas and, such as that. Most of that outlying land, well, pretty much all of it, was being rented out to other people who are growing crops on it or growing timber on it. I mean, it was growing soybeans or corn or pine trees, essentially. So right around the house, and I mean, my family's been in North Carolina since the 1600s. We were down to, I'll say, 38 acres because this portion was sold off to send one of my aunts to college, and this tract was sold off to send another aunt to college, and this tract was sold off to send my uncle to broadcasting school, and this tract was sold. You get the idea, right? When it came down to it, 38 acres was a little overwhelming. On the north end of the property, they had put in a mobile home park. Let me orient myself. Yeah, I'm thinking that's the north end. On the west end of the property, a road had come through and there was essentially a neighborhood. On the south end of the property, they had built a high school. Well, I mean, there was a little bit of land and a road between us and the high school, but essentially, if you went to the south end of the property, you'd go through maybe 3 to 4 half-acre tracts, and then a road, and then the new high school. And the east end of the property was the main road. The sun rose right there, and across from us was basically just a big field with a double-wide mobile home. Okay, so you're kind of getting the idea. 200 years ago, this was a really nice place, right? And by 1999 or whatever, we've got a trailer park full of illegal immigrants that work for the Smithfield pork plant on one side. We've got sort of a lower class neighborhood on the other side, a high school on the other side, and then just a big field with a mobile home. And things were not good. When I came in, first of all, my uncle handed me a pistol and said, wear this every moment of the day. Essentially, he implied it, and he said, you're going to need this. Okay. So I strapped it on and started trying to take care of things. Things started disappearing immediately. He went to the hospital. He died. He was extremely influential in the county. He was the head of the Democrat Party. He was, old family. Best friend was the sheriff. Nobody was going to mess with anything as long as he was around. Well, he died. And so here I am. And I did not grow up there. I grew up in the mountains. I was it's family land. Family's been there since the 1600s. I didn't grow up there, and nobody gave a crap what my last name was. They immediately started trying to rip me off, and I got run off the road twice. The tractor was stolen. Lots of antiques were stolen. All kinds of stuff from the neighborhood back there. Kids started coming and tearing through the property on four-wheelers, destroying the crops. I kept repairing fences. I literally had to call the sheriff and say, look, if they come on the property again, I'm just going to shoot them because this is our living. This is our income. I have every right to shoot a trespasser. And he had to go over and say, look, if your kids drive their four-wheelers in those fields again, they will be dead. And he means it because I meant it. I mean, I put up with all I could. I mean, after 15 or 16 times, you go and ask the parents, keep your kids under control, keep them off my property, they're destroying my crops. You got to lay down the law. I didn't want to do that. I didn't know if I could do that. But I damn sure made sure they thought I could. The Mexicans never bothered us at all. Actually, I mean they were fine. The dogs would come on the property sometimes and chase the chickens. I didn't mind that. Actually, fairly decent people. They were much better than the locals, who were probably distant cousins or something, right? The music was loud. Sometimes I had to ask them to turn it down. I mean, you'd hear that bass going all the time. The food was fantastic. They were pretty nice folks. Actually got nothing against them whatsoever. The locals gave me a very big problem. From the high school came vandals and thieves, and for the most part, the local cops were horrible. They just didn't care. The people doing the crime were their nieces and nephews and cousins, and they were just going to let them get away with it. Well, fortunately, I did still have a few strings I could pull. I mean, without a doubt. My family had been so influential in that area for so many centuries that I could call the governor, I could call the state attorney general, I could call your local representative, your state senator, whatever, county commissioner, sheriff, and I could get things done. And I did have to do that because the people around us were just meth heads and degenerates. And for the most part, and it was awful. So if I'm going to advise someone on, being a self-sufficient gardener, growing your food and your herbs for medicine, I would first of all say get a reasonable piece of land that you can handle. If you've got a large family, maybe you can handle 100 acres. Maybe you can handle 1,000 acres. When you're by yourself, 38 acres is insane. You get up every morning and you go out and you go around the perimeter of the property and you check all the fences. You keep a constant eye on things while you're working. You keep a constant ear out while you're working because there's constant work that has to be done. And that's a very large amount of property for one person to handle. And basically all night, you're looking for headlights. Is somebody on your property? And if they are, you can call the police if you're in an area where police will actually respond and handle it. If you're on your own, you have to pick up your shotgun and walk out there, and you have to be really ready and willing to kill somebody. Now, are you ready and willing to kill somebody over $10,000 worth of corn? If you need that to feed your family, if you need that to pay the taxes and make your electric payment and everything you got to do, you got to do it. And I'm sorry, that's hard. I'm Irish in my temperament. Mess with me and I will fight you, with my fists like crazy. Actually take a gun and shoot a 12 or 13-year-old kid? I wasn't ready to do it. I was not willing to do it. I would have gone and beat the crap out of their father. But what are you going to do? How many times do I have to tell you, keep your kids under control? So I'd shoot in the air, I'd shoot at tires, I'd scare the crap out of them. But, when it came down to it, I was not going to shoot one of those kids. I was going to go pull their father out of the house and beat the hell out of him. And thank God it never came to that. Land can be really difficult to manage. So I would recommend for, say, a family of 1 to 4, a single person to a couple to maybe 4 or even 5 kids, look at 5 acres. An acre can produce enough food and herbal medicine, if managed properly, for one person every single year. If you're in a drought-prone area, you have to plan for drought. You need to do berms and swales. You need to be doing rainwater catchment, etc. If you're a flood-prone area, again, you need to be doing berms. Okay, not as much on the swales, but you need to protect your. When I say 1 acre can provide for one person every single year, that's on average. You're better off if you have an acre and a half, 2 acres. Obviously, you're better off if you have a little bit of land in one location, a little bit of land in another location, or you got family or friends and you can trade back and forth. If you're a community of people who are like mind and you can trade, you're always going to be better off. I mean, one person may have pasture and another person may have fields. One person may want to raise hogs and another person may want to raise chickens. You're always going to be better off if you can do those trade-offs in terms of resources and labor. I'm a single guy, okay? 1 acre essentially can provide enough for me. I have not utilized land as I should have in the last few years. We've had a hurricane, we've had different things, okay? Where I live in the mountains, I'm only on about a third of an acre, but I'm in the middle of thousands of acres of national forest. I have not had to prioritize livestock because I got deer and bear and trout and turkeys and I have not had to prioritize. I've not had to systematize the way I once had to do. My grandfather had the farm set up almost in a grid pattern. He was left-handed. He was a designer, an architect, a brick mason, a carpenter, a politician, and everything else you can possibly imagine. A game warden. I mean, but he was very practical and logical. And so when you had the house there, okay, and it was about a half acre from the road, so set back, you didn't get a lot of traffic noise. That was nice. In the front yard, which he liked to keep absolutely immaculate, totally different. I don't care what my property looks like. He really did care. I mean, he kept everything just straight lines and perfect and trimmed, and I mean, he was amazing that way. And me, I'm just like, I live in the woods. I'm glad to live in the woods. I don't like to even cut the grass. I mean, that's just me. He would cut the grass every single Saturday, until winter. Cut the grass in winter, but otherwise. So from the road back, he had a long drive coming in, and of course he laid it all out in concrete, so you wouldn't have to worry about mud. I mean, he was brilliant this way. He grew pecan trees, pecan, whatever you want to call them. Where I come from, we call them pecan, and yes, I am very southern. In Georgia, South Carolina, they say pecan. In North Carolina, we say pecan. Anyway, so pecan trees. And they were, planted immediately when he and my grandmother got the property. He was like, what was he, 17 and she was 15? I mean, so you're talking amazing people from day one, right? They go in, they clear wooded property, wooded swampy property, drain the swampy parts, cleared everything. He built the entire house himself with his own 2 hands, the barns, everything. Okay, so you're coming in, you got this long driveway coming up to the front door, you got pecan trees, a big magnolia over there. At one point there was a pomegranate, crabapple trees, and sand plums. Sandy soil, they had the plums that grow very well right there. Coming around back, you start getting pears, peaches, more apples. Okay, so over to the right were the vineyards for muscadine grapes. Beside there was, and the chickens would go under the grapevines once they were established. They were up on these like big square, they weren't trellis like you might think of vines. They grew kind of tall in these sort of like box-like structures. Chickens would also often be over there and at the back of the property. So for there you got the pasture for the horses. The horses had the south end of the property. I'm seeing this in reverse, actually. So the horses had pasture, and they'd be rotated. They go from one slot to the next and back. I mean, he knew about rotational grazing before anybody wrote about rotational grazing. You come around and you start getting to the fields. Okay, so the fields, these would be the more the production fields. So you'd be growing mostly tobacco. Okay, at this point, probably 60 acres or more of tobacco. That would be rotated out with corn usually. He didn't grow soybeans. That was not a thing then. But when they first bought the property and cleared it, first thing they did was plant, I think, 50 acres of tomatoes. And that's nuts. That's insane, right? But they planted 50 acres of tomatoes knowing that, pure virgin soil was going to give a fantastic crop, and took them all to the market and paid for the property. I mean, you're talking teenagers, okay? And I mean, my grandmother used to talk about the bushels and bushels of tomatoes, and every one that started getting soft or bruised, she would cook down, and she stored them for decades. She had jars of canned tomatoes out in the I can't remember the pantry. That's what they call it, the pantry. I mean, so the first thing they did was plant bushels and I mean like millions of pounds of tomatoes, and basically paid for the property. Year after that, it was cucumbers and Mount Olive cucumber plant just up the road. I mean, she said she had so many tomatoes and cucumbers she got sick of them. And I mean, you can absolutely imagine that. But you think of these two teenage kids that did this, and they didn't even have a car. They were doing things with mules. They had an ox cart that they would hook up to an ox cart and go. And this is like the 1920s. I mean, this is not that long ago. Go over and help out on my grandfather's parents' farm and earn a little extra money on the side. They would farm wherever they could. But eventually, those fields were turned into tobacco, mainly rotated with corn. All right, so big, I don't even know, 60 acres at the back. It was a huge ditch before the road. See, my grandfather, what they call tiled the entire property. It was swampland. First of all, it had to be drained. So these big ditches had to drain the water off of the property. And then irrigation had to go out. It's hot in eastern North Carolina. So with these tile pipes, terracotta pipes, went out, I mean, in all directions, so they could irrigate the fields if there wasn't enough water, or they could drain water off the field if there was too much water. He was brilliant, I'm telling you. So you come around here, and here's where the pigs were, okay? And the pigs are closer to the house, and so is the stable where the horses were. Maybe 3 acres from the house, right? So the fields are all back here, and then you get over here to the chickens, and big chicken coop, over which was that's where over the pigs and the chickens, I should say, where the walnut trees began, black walnuts. Yes, I mean, those walnuts would fall, and really the worms would get into the walnut holes. So the chickens would really eat the worms in some of the walnut holes. The pigs would go crazy over any fallen fruit or nuts. I mean, so it was like self-feeding. It was brilliant that way. There were crabapple trees or pear trees, whatever fell into the pig bin or where the chickens were, and yeah, I mean, it totally stretched out the budget as far as feeding the livestock. So you come over here, there was the peach orchard and the rabbit hutches, and then another 30 acres of fields going that way, if I remember correctly. And on that end of the property was a large pond. It was stocked and full of turtles as well. So you had fish and turtles and frogs there. At the other end of the property, going back the other way, was another pond that went into the swamps. So it didn't have to be stocked. It was just whatever came in there wild. And there were frogs, there were fish, there were snapping turtles, there were alligators. So coming into the backyard, I don't know if you could actually picture this, but it was incredible. You come into the backyard from the fields with the livestock behind there. You start having the barn, the stables over here. his huge workshop, because he refurbished antiques, he built furniture, he did all kinds of stuff. Probably about a 2,000 square foot building there, with a chestnut tree, because he liked to roast chestnuts on the wood stove out there in the wintertime. Coming over there, there was his office, a big garage where we kept not just cars, but farm equipment and all that. And then in front of that was he was a brick mason, so he had a brick wall that kind of differentiated the working part of the farm from the backyard. So you come beyond this brick wall, and there's a walkway coming up to the big back porch, which was huge, and a breezeway, and he planted willow trees over the breezeway so that in the summertime the evaporation of the water from the weeping willow would create a natural air conditioning. Big old pear tree with butterflies flying all around, and a little pond with fish, and at one point a pet alligator. More fruit trees, berry bushes. Oh, and back in the back 40 on the field was a good 5 acres of nothing but blueberries, So there was tons of berries. And you get to the house, there's a cellar, walk down, not basement really. I mean, very big, where you'd be brewing wine or pickling or fermenting. I mean, all kinds of stuff going on down there. Like I said, the pantry was back there, and it was full of all the stuff my grandmother would can, from preserves and pickles to sausage. I mean, they made their own sausage in house. There'd be meat hanging. And then you got to the house, and you got this, giant back porch where all the farm hands and everybody would sit out there and eat every single day. And it was just like it was a modest brick ranch house. I mean, essentially, this is, 1920s, turn of the century house that I had a big den, a big living room, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, kitchen, not much of a front porch, not much at all. Actually 2 front doors, because the house was built in 2 different stages. But you can imagine how much life took place on this property. It was absolutely self-sufficient, except for electricity. Now, we did have an electric generator, but everything was set up for a time before electricity. We had an electric well. There's a well house, but there was also a hand pump. And I don't know if y'all even know what a hand pump for a well looks like anymore, but it was just like this metal thing, and you poured a little water and get it primed, and you started pumping, and water just started coming out. That setup could literally provide food for an entire town. Not a big town. Okay, when I say an entire town, well, the next town over was only like 150 people. But, you could probably, yeah. And, once the corn was rotated out, they put in peanuts, and it would go back to tobacco. It provided jobs, it provided everything. Now, let's say you don't have anything like that. I don't have anything like that now. Like I said, I've got national forest, and I've got my little plot of land, and it's not ideal. It's on the northwest slope, but I can do a lot with it. You're just in an apartment. You're in a condominium. You may have a patio or a deck or just a few sunny windows. You can absolutely grow herbs. So my book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden, it tells you how. First of all, you start with, a very specific list of what you need. You write down your health needs and what herbs you need. You write down the herbs you're going to need for your health risk and needs. Most of these, as I said, are perennial herbs. They will need to be stratified. So if tomorrow you were to buy the seeds for all the herbs, put them in the freezer for a week or two, a month, Get past that last frost date, start planting them out, and you'd be absolutely amazed. So in my book, We get into the basics of garden design, which is really what I was just talking about, because that's where you start. Garden design. If all you have is a balcony window, or a sunny window inside, or a court, or 10 feet out your back door, you can absolutely do this, but you have to design it properly. You're going to want to make use of vertical space. You're going to want to make use of every bit of sunlight. And sometimes that may involve setting up mirrors to reflect sunlight to give you a little bit more light a little later in the day, or painting things white or black, or whatever it takes, right? Garden design is absolutely primary. If, say, I had, I don't know, 10 square yards, what is that? 10 square yards would be 300 feet. That's a lot of space, actually, when you think about it. I'm sitting in a room right now. Let's see, that's going to be 25 by 25 feet. I'm in a square room, and I've got 25 on that wall, and I've got 25 on that wall. Okay, multiply those two together, and you know how many square feet I've got to work with. And this is a big space. This is like the space you would have in like a courtyard at a condominium or something, right? That's a huge amount of space when it comes to growing things. I would probably look at doing what's called a mandala garden. I would put a pathway into the center of it, and then maybe 5 pathways going out like spokes on a wheel around me, right? And then kind of a horseshoe-shaped enclosure around each one of those. That way, I am going to use the minimal amount of space to walk and have the maximum amount of space for growing. Now, in the middle, I might do a spiral, an herb spiral, like Bill Mollison came up with. Bring in a bunch of soil mounded up, maybe 6 feet tall, and plant spiral beds all the way around to the top. You can get a huge amount of growing space on that. Dig a little pool for water at the bottom. You can put water plants around the bottom. You can even keep a few fish. You just basically water the top, and it just soaks all the way through. If I really wanted to maximize the space, I'd do about 6 of those, one in the center and one on each of those 5 spokes, and then plant other things all around them in more like traditional beds. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be diverse. You're going to be able to get 10 times, if not 100 times, more plants in a space like that than you would if you just took it in traditional rows. Look at vertical space. What can I plant up? What can I grow in vines? What can I trellis? Hanging pots and such, or stacking them. You've got a wall there. Well, you can put up some, it can be some old wood pallets. It could be anything from like lattice or anything like that, and hang containers from it. So you're literally covering every square inch. You can maybe even put stuff on the roof. You may be able to put stuff in windows. You can grow so much in such one little area if you design it properly. When I was talking about my grandfather's farm, the thing I left out was the way it was set up. Everything was in systems. It was used throughout the property. So if you had a bunch of corn stalks coming from the field that would turn into compost, they'd go to the garden beds. If you had manure from the horses, they'd go here. If you had, all manure was used. Chickens, hogs, rabbits. Wow. Every bit of manure was used as fertilizer. But where we might have a whole field of watermelons growing over here by the grapevines, because this is a good way to use that space, right? You can't get all those to market, or you eat them yourself before they start to go bad. So you split them open, you throw them to the horses, throw them to the pigs. You're literally just cycling everything from one space to another, stacking those systems. Think about that in the smallest space you've got. How can you use every single element 5 different ways? Can you catch rainwater? You probably can. Even if you live in an area where they don't allow rain barrels, which is stupid, but I mean, occasionally you do run into something like that, like in an HOA or something. Maybe you've got a hard surface, a walkway, a little bit of a roof. Maybe you can just put up a tarp somewhere. You can catch rainwater. You can hold rainwater using a deep mulch. I mean, if you put a bunch of mulch on top of the soil so that water doesn't evaporate, you're catching that rainwater. I mean, there's so many things you can do, even down to, I mean, things that may be a little controversial. Urine, for instance. Urine is full of nitrogen. What is nitrogen? Nitrogen is fertilizer. That's the main component of fertilizer. Uric acid, urea, as they call it. You can recycle, let's say you pee in a cup as opposed to your toilet, dilute it 1 to 10 with water. That means 1 part urine to 10 parts water, because if it's too concentrated, it will actually kill your plants. You can actually use it to kill poison ivy if you don't dilute it, by the way. But you could pee into a bucket with some sawdust in there, pour in some water, dilute it, and you have a slurry essentially that is like ultra. I mean, you're going to want to let it sit for a few days, but it means like ultra premium fertilizer and irrigation. There's so many things you can do. Now, that may sound controversial to you, and I know some people say do it and some say don't do it. Look into it yourself. Anyway, my book, I've done a full series of podcasts on it, so if you literally want to hear every chapter read, you can get that for free. But I would highly recommend you get this book and put it on your shelf, okay? First of all, I get into the basics of garden design. Then I talk about planning your herbal medicine chest, and that's evaluate what you need and what you need to address it and prioritize growing those. So then I talk about all the herbs you would want to grow for each issue you might have, and I tell you exactly how to grow them. I go through the absolute, this plant needs this plant needs that, plant it here, plant it there, watering schedules, temperature schedules, and all that. And then we get into some culinary herbs, the herbs you want to absolutely grow for culinaries. I have a chapter on the essentials you would want to grow for your garden. Consulted with several other herbalists on that. We all came up with a fairly uniform list of plants we would absolutely not want to do without for colds and coughs and more serious issues, bleeding and everything like that. It's a darn good book. It really is. It has excellent reviews on Amazon. I don't even think it has a single negative review. It's definitely one you want to have on hand for like one of those shit hits the fan scenarios, yeah. But when it, the saying is with gardening, when was the best time to plant a garden? It was 5 years ago. When was the best time to plant asparagus? It was 3 years ago. Get it now. Start orienting your thinking, especially in terms of systems. And I get into that a lot. Design. Design is so essential. Get the seeds, start planting stuff. Plant knowing some things are going to fail and you'll learn a little bit each year. And in, 2 years from now, next year, if you plant a garden this year, next year your garden is going to be exponentially better. 5 years from now, you're going to be a master gardener, even if you don't have the title, which is pretty much meaningless, actually, because a lot of those master gardener courses are just like, use this pesticide and use this herbicide, and not my deal. In fact, my book talks about how to use no pesticides, no herbicides, and no chemical fertilizers. But get started now. You got about 4 weeks, I would say, depending on where you are. If you're like in Florida, you're probably way ahead of schedule, or Arizona or something. But if you're in, around North Carolina, a little north, a little south, Georgia, Pennsylvania, or whatever, certainly New York, you got plenty of time. You got a good month to figure this out. Get things going, get things started, get your garden designed. You're going to tear it up and redesign it the next year. You're going to tear it up and redesign it the year after that. Okay? Just get stuff in the ground. And within a few years, you're going to have this down. I mean, you're going to be giving advice to other people. But my book, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden, will absolutely put you on the path to growing your own herbal medicine chest, and you can grow some vegetables and pretty much anything else you need. Fruit trees and all that, really in very small spaces, and I would really caution you against very large spaces. Because you don't want to go through what I went through. I'm telling you, it's great to have land. It's not great to try to manage and farm all that land. I would love to have 100 acres or more again, but if I did, without a doubt, most of it would be kept in timber. I would never wish to micromanage, I guess you would say, that amount of acreage again. It is overwhelming, especially in our times where people are going to be your biggest predator. You don't have to worry so much about deer getting into your tomatoes, which you will on a small scale. On a large scale, you just set up and harvest the deer. On a large scale, people are your biggest problem. And with, broken families and kids running wild and nobody really holding anybody accountable anymore, and meth heads and all that kind of stuff, people are really a big problem. If you can't keep them off your property, they're going to be on your property. I can guarantee you that. And any fence you put up, they will cut or knock down. There is no easy answer. You gotta figure out how to be very intimidating. And fortunately, my nature is fairly intimidating. Yours may not be. People are really the worst. It's like that line from Jerry Seinfeld. Oh yeah, people are the worst. I hate people. No, I mean, when you have property, you can't keep them off. And they're going to do damage. And they're going to steal from you. And, I mean, it didn't used to be this way, apparently. People used to be held accountable. They care about their family name. They didn't want to cause trouble. That's all out the window now. And it's man, I mean, I tell you, I mean, probably the reason we didn't have the trouble with the Mexicans in up there was, even though they were illegal immigrants, they still had some sense of morality, um, accountability, an idea that I don't want to get arrested. The white kids had none of that. They were like, F you, and I'm going to do whatever I want, and you're not going to tell me what to do, and my parents will not tell me what to do, and they're going to come after you if you tell me what to do. And I mean, it was really bad. It really, and those were the kids. The adults just came on the property at night and stole stuff. Antiques, valuable things, tractors, just stole them. And, they just disappeared. The cops are like, well, we can't find them. They, probably got sold down in South Carolina and you'll never see them. Like, what the hell are we even paying taxes for? You can't protect me. You can't protect my property. You can't get back my property when it's stolen. Well, you know how it is. What does that mean? How it is your cousin stole my damn tractor and you're not going to do anything to get it back? Yeah, I know how it is. I know exactly how it is. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Well, anyway. I think I have made clear the point that it's a very good thing to start a garden. It's a very good thing to own property, but sometimes it can be a very bad thing to own too much property if it's all on you. That's one thing no other generation in my family ever had to deal with. There were always 5 brothers or 15 cousins. Well, when it came down to it, it was just me. And it was a bad, bad time. It was a very bad time. But I got through it. Yeah, for the most part. Anyway, y'all, have a good one, and I'll talk to you next time. Buy my book, remember, Growing Your Survival Herb Garden. Excellent book, in my humble opinion. In my rarely humble opinion. Let's just say it honestly. Anyway, have a good one.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.